Have you ever wondered about the possibility of the United States invading Russia? It's a topic that's been circulating recently due to the growing tensions between the two nations, with Russia making threat to NATO members in Eastern Europe and the US deploying more troops near Russia. It begs the question, could the US take preemptive action and invade Russia if they viewed them as a significant threat? Today, we will explore this idea and consider how such a scenario might play out. If you are new on our channel, make sure to subscribe, like, and share this video in your circle. Firstly, it's important to note that while America may have the military strength to defeat the Russian armed forces, but occupying such a huge country with a large population would be nearly impossible due to the level of resistance an occupation would face. If the US were to invade Russia, how would it likely play out? Well, the initial military strike could potentially weaken the Russian armed forces and give the US a significant advantage. However, Russia's vast size and harsh terrain would make it difficult for the US to sustain its military campaign, and the conflict would likely drag on for a long time. Furthermore, an American invasion of Russia would undoubtedly trigger a major international crisis, with other global superpowers like China likely to take sides and get involved. This could lead to an all-out war and could potentially destabilize the entire world. So while an American invasion of Russia is possible in theory, it's highly unlikely to happen due to the significant risks involved. It's far more likely that both countries will continue to engage in diplomatic and economic measures to resolve their conflicts. Why would America invade Russia? It's very unlikely that America would invade Russia. For it to happen, there would have to be a really big reason for the two countries to go on war, and the US would need to think that invading is the best solution. But let's take a look at the reason why the US might consider invading Russia. Well, the first reason could be if Russia attacked NATO. What do you think about the most significant alliances in the realm of international relations? Well, let me tell you about NATO, which is considered to be one of the most crucial ones in the world today. NATO, or the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, brings together 30 European and North American countries with a common goal of safeguarding their freedom and security. This political and military alliance strives to achieve its objectives through various means, making it a vital force in today's global landscape. In the event of Russia launching an attack against a NATO member state, the United States may consider invading Russia as a last resort. This scenario would likely only arise if the attack were of such a large scale that it resulted in an all-out war with America, and the situation had escalated beyond the point of negotiation. As a member of NATO, the US is bound by the principle of collective defense, which requires all members to come to the aid of any member that is attacked. Thus, a full-scale Russian offensive against a NATO member such as the Baltic states could potentially trigger a major conflict with the US. Direct attack against America. The idea of America invading Russia may seem far-fetched, but there is a second reason why this could happen. If Russia were to launch a direct attack against the US, especially on the US mainland, with a significant number of American civilian or military casualties, it could lead to a major conflict between two nations. Such an attack could trigger a full-scale war, and if things escalated, the US may consider invading Russia as a way to defend itself. It's important to recognize that the potential for conflict between nations is always present, and it's up to the international community to work towards maintaining peace and stability. American involvement in a Russian civil war. Another reason why the US could potentially send troops into Russia is if there were a breakdown in the political situation within the country. This could happen if there were a collapse of government or if civil war broke out. In such a scenario, the US may need to send troops, possibly as a part of an international force, to secure important locations and bring stability to the situation. While it's important to consider all possibilities and be prepared to take actions in order to prevent a further escalation of the crisis. Is the US military strong enough to invade Russia? We have discussed the potential reason why America might consider invading Russia. Now let's explore whether America actually has the capability to conquer Russia. Firstly, it's important to recognize that America does possess the military strength to launch an invasion of Russia. However, it's highly unlikely that they would be able to successfully occupy and gain control over the vast country. There are several factors that America would need to take into account before considering such a drastic action. These include defeating the Russian armed forces as well as considering the geographical and population size of Russia. Additionally, the cost of launching such an invasion would also need to be carefully considered. It would be no easy feat. One of the major obstacles the US Army would face is the sheer size of the Russian armed forces, with over 1 million active soldiers and a staggering 2 million reservists. The Russian Army is a formidable opponent to say the least. Even though the US Army has a greater number of active soldiers standing at 1.3 million, but they fall behind in the number of reservists, with a total just over 800,000. It would definitely be an intense and challenging conflict. A conflict between these two powerful nations would result in enormous numbers of casualties on both sides. While the US Army may be more technologically advanced, but it's important to note that Russia is also a major arms developer. While it's possible that America could eventually defeat the Russian armed forces, it would undoubtedly be a long and costly fight. Geographical advantage for Russia. Russia's size is immense, almost double the size of the United States. This means that to occupy the entire country, the US would require an enormous number of troops. Currently, the US has around 1.3 million soldiers in their armed forces. But to launch an invasion of Russia, they would have to redeploy forces from other bases of the world. Even then, it would still be unlikely that the US could occupy the entire country due to its massive size. Invading Russia would be very expensive for the US. It would cost hundreds of millions of dollars every day to fund a full invasion, and this would greatly reduce America's ability to fund other military projects. Even though the US has the financial resources to launch an invasion and the military capabilities to win, it would still be very costly in terms of both money and lives. Imagine a scenario where US invades Russia. It would be a massive military operation involving extensive fighting between Russian and American troops. The US would need to mobilize almost all of its military resources, leaving many other parts of the world vulnerable to conflict. Russia is also a part of security pact with other nations who would likely to join the fight against America. This would escalate the conflict and result in a huge number of casualties and destruction. Essentially, an invasion of Russia could start World War III. Has America ever invaded Russia? Let's dive into untold history about America's military involvement in Russia. Believe it or not, but the United States has actually sent troops to Russia before. It all happened during the Russian Civil War, which took place from 1917 to 1922. This war broke out after the Russian Revolution and saw the Communist Red Army fighting against anti-communist and monarchist forces, who were called the Whites. To support the Whites, an international military intervention was launched and 5,000 American troops were deployed to Russia. This is the only time in history that American soldiers fought against Russians on Russian soil. Ultimately, the anti-communists were defeated and the international forces withdrew. Sadly, 596 American soldiers lost their lives in this conflict. During the Cold War, which was a global struggle between communism and capitalism, America and the Soviet Union faced off in series of proxy conflicts. However, they never engaged in direct attacks on each other. Even though the US did draw up plans for an invasion of the USSR, but still no direct fighting occurred between America and Soviet troops. Thankfully, the conflict never escalated into an all-out war between the two countries. If you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, and of course don't forget to subscribe so you never miss it when we upload a new video. You can drop your recommendations and comment of what you wanna see us make in the next video. On that note, thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one.